Level up with the new AAA Commanders MVP membership. Get all the benefits of AAA plus exclusive experiences, discounts, and tickets. Already a AAA member? Upgrade for free or join today at AAA.com/Commanders. Another gut punch for the Commanders. Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media, Ampire. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. Also, for you club members, I'll be doing a private Zoom for you guys later in the week. And Bram Weinstein, the voice of Commanders, and I will be back on Tuesday night with another live stream, 7:30 Eastern Time. Join us there to talk about yet another loss, but maybe some encouraging signs for the Commanders. Maybe the best of both worlds can occur over the next 5 weeks where they actually continue to play well, but maybe they don't fall too far in their draft status. That to me would be the best of both worlds, because you can get a higher pick, but you can look like you're a competitive team. And that to me is the key here. You cannot finish in a very bad way here, because I can't underscore, and you talk to a lot of people here, that the feeling is like you just have a disaster of a finish for the season, then that carries into next season, and that locker room will be this close to being maybe, like as one person in the organization said, detonating if things go wrong. So you don't want that to happen. So you do want to finish strong. I think they need to be rewarded for some of these efforts just to get that feeling back, maybe get a couple more wins, but yet you don't blow, you don't fall to, we're not talking about 5 in a row here, folks. You get a couple wins, you look competitive in all the games, you do well against Philly, maybe you split there, maybe at least play them twice really well, etc. Like, there's a way to finish strong and still not blow the draft standing for the draftniks out there. But I do think it'd be a really bad if they finished 3-14. I just think that'd be a disaster overall, and it would speak volumes about where they're headed. Keep in mind, and I'm going to get into the game here. Of course, they lost to Denver 27-26 in overtime. I'm going to get to that in a second, but just the whole point of this at this point is like, where does this team go? And I think one thing, just to remind everybody, like, I know everybody loves the draft status. I can tell you who doesn't is here now, at least at this point in the year. In April, I think Adam Peters was like, oh, I got the 5th pick or the 6th pick, whatever. Right now it's the 6th. But I think when, you have to be careful about what it means here. And I think that's the important thing, and just how they view it. And also how, look around the league, man, like the teams that draft consistently in the top 5, 6, 7, they're the same teams a lot of the times. The Giants have been there, like they live in that area and they never get better. It's not about drafting there. It's about drafting good players overall, because you need good players overall. Like, this season should tell you a lot about how important depth is, and you get depth by drafting a lot of good players wherever they are at. And yes, you want the impact. Because they have a quarterback, they are in a better spot than most teams. They don't need to get that guy. I'm not trying to say, that's not important, but I do think a good finish is important. But tonight was part of that, of what I'm talking about. They played a very good team to the end. Listen, man, they win the game if Mariota is able to get the ball over Nick Bonito. It was a good pass rush, good play, good call by the defensive coordinator, Vance Joseph. But Jeremy McNichols is open. That's how close that was to this being a W for this team. And that's why I say, like, you can take something out and say, hey, the offense is what you thought it was. It's getting back to that point because you had 17 back. And look what kind of a difference he made. So you can take the good from that, and you can still say, and they got the draft pick. So that's what I'm talking about. Be competitive, look good, put on a good showing, and then wherever it goes, it goes. But that's how close we were. Last year, that's a ball that gets over the fingertips somehow of the defensive player and into McNichols, and they win at the end, because that's what they did last year. This year, it's that kind of gut punch too. That's a second straight gut punch for them after having lost to Miami in overtime in Madrid. Another impressive drive to get into overtime, but there are definite flaws here, and those keep showing up. but there's also reason to at least say, hey, the next 5 weeks could be at least fun to watch because of what you have on offense and some of the games coming up. It could be a lot more fun to watch for sure. And again, I think it starts on offense there. And again, you don't want to sit there and say like, okay, moral victories. And, it's funny because Zach Ertz kind of brought the word up. It's not, and he didn't say that it was, but it's like, there are things that you can build on. The hard part for some guys like this, they're not going to be here next year, and they know it. So it's hard for them to say like, oh, well, you can build this. They want to win now, and they want to feel good now. They don't want to they're set the foundation. They want to get rewarded for it. But we all know like that part, the part of the season or the part of the year is over for the anything that can really happen good from this season as far as like postseason. We know, like, listen, folks, we know they're done and they've been done for a little while. So what can you take from this? And again, no silver linings, no moral victories. But I think when you look at silver linings, like, okay, what can you take? It's look at the offense and what they did. Look at the offense, what it can become. That is arguably the best defense in the NFL that Washington faced tonight. They put up 411 yards. They 26 points, obviously took overtime with that. 8 for 17 on third downs, 30 first downs. Like this is their best showing in offense in a while. This is something like during that, this is what now, 7 losses in a row, but the 4 of those losses were just ridiculous. Like they weren't even competitive for most of those games. And at least for most of these games, they weren't competitive and the scores weren't competitive down the stretch. They were blowouts. And they did not look like a team that had much of a future. Because again, at that point, you can sit there and think like, oh, they're playing their way into the top 3 pick. Folks, they're playing their way into a lot worse than that, because where they were going was really, really bad. And they have now, you can't say they've turned it around because they haven't won. And you have to win in this league, but they've at least looked competitive. And I think that's where the bar is falling here, folks, that hey, they were competitive. Like this is what they were supposed to be this year. This is the game that they should have going into the year. You thought, okay, Denver at home, even if they're 9-2, like, okay, they can win that game. But going into this one tonight, I don't know how many people would have thought that. I thought they'd be competitive because I felt like Denver's offense wasn't that great. It was just okay. And that would give them a chance. I'm really surprised at what they're able to do against the Denver defense. And again, that's where it can get interesting down the stretch, because whenever you get Jaden Daniels back now, there's a chance it could be this week against Minnesota. We don't know yet. There's a lot more to learn. Dan Quinn will address the media on Monday. And then I'm sure at that point we'll hear more about it being on Wednesday, because as of today, he has not yet been cleared for contact. I know the desire is for him to get back, but if you can get him out there you saw the protection from the offensive line tonight, and the game plan, I think, helped with that. And that's what you want to see. Like it's funny because on Friday, they've talked a lot about Jaden Daniels protecting himself. And I did ask Cliff Kingsbury the other day, or Thursday, I guess it was, to say, okay, as a play caller, what can you do to help him? Because obviously he's got to help himself, but they got to help him too with just making sure that, you're putting him in good spots. And I think you saw tonight what that means. Like that's the best pass rush in the NFL, 46 sacks. They only got to Mariota twice for a couple of reasons. Like one, I thought the game plan, like in terms of running the ball, they stuck with the run so that they were staying ahead of the sticks for the most part. They stayed with the run even when it wasn't going well, because the score was allowed them to. In other games, it's not allowing them to. Like you're falling behind by double digits in second half, you're going to be throwing the ball. Then you're putting your quarterback in a worse situation because now they're teeing off. And you didn't want to have that defense tee off on you, because they tee off on teams very well. Hail Nation, take your fandom up a notch. Check out the new AAA Commanders MVP membership. You'll get all the reliable AAA benefits like 24/7 roadside assistance, plus exciting Hail Nation extras like opportunities to win game tickets, attend exclusive events, and 15% off the online pro shop. Already a AAA member? No problem. You can upgrade for free. Head to AAA.com/Commanders to upgrade or join today and become a true Commanders MVP and Hail Nation member. I felt like they did a good job of moving Mariota around. Mariota did a good job helping himself and just by creating time in the pocket. But even there were times where, he would have to scramble a little bit, but it was after a few seconds in the pocket with time. Like that line was really good. And that again is what you want to see. Like that's something you can build on. That will carry through to next year because that group will be back, assuming they re-sign Chris Paul. But even if they don't, like 4 of those guys will be back, and then you can put Brandon Coleman in or whomever. But that group will be back. So like that's what you want to see. Now, I know Connolly had the holding penalty on that wiped out a touchdown. That was a big blemish for him. Otherwise, quiet night, pretty good in the run game. And I didn't focus on him all the time. So, but what I know is like that was the only time you really noticed him. So bad timing on it. I get that. But bottom line is like the line did its job against a very good group, a very good team against the run as well. Like Denver entered the game only allowing like 3.4 yards per carry, best in the NFL. And I know Washington at one point was at 4.6. I don't have my notes in front, my stats in front of me, but at one point they're 4.6 yards per carry. Excellent, excellent night on the ground there. And I think, like I said, build off of that. And, this, again, like this is the team you thought, okay, this is the offense you thought. I know without Jaden Daniels, this is what, this is probably as well as you could hope for. And getting him back soon, I don't know if Noah Brown's coming back or when. They keep saying he will, and so we'll see. I'm like you, got to get him out there. I know what you're saying, so I get it, but he's still out there. He's still on the roster. They still would like to see him back out there, and he wants to get out there. So when he gets back out there, now you have a full complement of receivers with McLaurin, Debo, Trey Burks. And then if Noah Brown comes back, but again, like we'll see when he's out there, then we'll get to that. Regardless, they are in a much better spot now, just having McLaurin and Burks out there. And Burks only had 1 catch for 5 yards, but it was a hell of a catch. But he just adds a different presence out there. Like he's got some size. He's a guy that, my understanding is that Jane Daniels really likes him. So like that's something that you can see him developing with this group. Because I think it's a good, his ability to make some contested catches, his ability to play the X and the Z really helps out McLaurin. And so I think there's something to build on with him. And again, like, it's not like, even in the other game, he only had 3 catches a couple weeks ago, but they're tough catches. Like he adds something because of that. And there's a bit of a presence there. And as Terry McLaurin said, you can you can see the first round talent that just oozes from him, he said. So like players see it. In fact, like, we talk about that one-handed catch. With McLaurin, Dan Quinn, they talked about this after the game, that he made a catch in practice where I think Terry said the ball was like 10 or 13 feet in the air. I don't know how high it was, but they said that catch may have been better than the one he made out here, the one-handed grab that Odell Beckham even tweeted about on Twitter. So, but if you can get those guys going and keep them going, then you can at least, like, again, what if they lose the next 5 games, 35-34 or whatever it is, right? And you win a couple of them. At least the offense is what you thought it would be and what you hoped it would be. You want to carry that part in the offseason for sure. And, with Terry back out there, and as Zach Ertz said, it really opened the middle. And then what you saw was Ertz with 10 for $106. Could have had more, couple drops, know that, but he still had 10 for 106 because the middle was more open. When you have a guy that can take off the top and they're afraid of him, it just opened things up. And then you have more guys that can do damage. It opens things up. And that's what we saw tonight. So, I'm not trying to sit there and like pump you with like positivity. I'm just trying to be honest here. I do think that was a good showing for that. Obviously it was a good showing for them, but I do think that it matters for them that what happened out there, and it is something you can build off of, because really right now, again, this is about just finishing well, whatever that means. It means not collapsing, because if you just collapse again, that's really bad. But then it's, finishing well and, being able to build on that. Now, defensively, a long way to go still, but let me stick on offense for a second, because with McLaurin, you see what the importance to this offense for him, not just from he can make those tough slant catches. He went up against Patrick Surtain, who had not given up a touchdown. I think it was over 500 routes had been running against him without giving a touchdown. We gave up one tonight, but I think it's those tough slants. Like that's something he really does well. And they've been missing that. Like that's what you saw tonight, if you had those, I think it's a reminder that when you lose a top receiver, and I know everybody wants to crush crush Kingsbury for play calling, folks, when you lose some of these receivers, it makes a difference. Like, and your starting quarterback, right? It makes a big difference. And that's why I say, like, tonight, it was a good reminder to show, like, hey, this is what they can become, and this is who this guy is when he's right. And the good news for him from McLaurin is that he felt good after the game. But I think, like, he felt a lot of pride about what he was able to show and knowing how tough the season has been for him, starting with the holdout/hold in, then the injury. And, for the first time in his career here, he heard it from fans, like whether or not, or I don't know if you heard it, but like certainly how fans were certainly different with him and turning against him in some cases, more so than previous years. Like, he was the beloved guy, and then this year, some people turned on him, and so that creates a different level of adversity, and it can be challenging, right? And I don't know how much that has affected him. I don't know how much he's seen all of that. But you have to feel it. Like, you can't not. I just think it'd be tough. But I think that's why he feels pretty good about what he did coming back. And just you see when he makes those tough catches, the passion that he gets up and plays with. And he even said, like, he loves his wife, he loves his family, his friends, but there's just something different for him when he's on the field. And I think, again, you see the joy that he plays with out there. That too was missing from this offense. Commanders fans, your fandom just got an upgrade. Introducing the AAA Commanders MVP membership, where real fans get real perks and the same trusted AAA membership benefits. The new AAA Commanders membership provides the chance to win game tickets, access to VIP events and experiences, 15% off at the Commanders Online Pro Shop, while providing peace of mind for Commanders fans on the road. Already a AAA member? Don't sit on the sideline. Upgrade your membership or join today at AAA.com/Commanders. Like the resiliency, they could have just kept coming back. Even after, like, they had a 3rd and 25, they end up getting a first down on 4th and 6. It just, that's what they were doing. This felt like last year until the end, right? It just felt the leading up to that last play was last year. The 2-point conversion was definitely this year for what's gone wrong, right? But I mean, shoot, they had the touchdown to McLaurin in overtime, and it gets called up by a holding penalty. All right, well, next play, just hit Debo down the side to the 2-yard line and still get it in there. I mean, like, that's just different. They were just playing with a different level of confidence, especially on offense. And even Mikey Samuel was talking about how, like, he felt like they found a different connection when they were in Spain. So I think it speaks to why maybe this team needs to go away early in the year for a little bit longer than what they did this year, going, just for one joint practice up in New England. But I think, like, that, you can see it. And defensively, you can also see, like, Dan Quinn taking over the play calling and really the defense. There's just a different play and different level of discipline that you see with that. And I think the players are very careful not to go too far down that road because they really respect Joe Witt. But you do see it. And now these offenses, Miami, Denver, they're not as good as what, Kansas City, Detroit, Seattle, Dallas, they're not that level, but these guys have played better. And some of the plays are getting beat on. It's some of the stuff that's like, okay, we know they need more athleticism in that front seven. They don't have a pass rush. They have to manufacture things. They have to do things more creatively to get something. And if they're not getting home, you're going to give up. You're going to give stuff up. You're going to get Bo Nix outside the pocket, and there's nobody that can chase them down like they need, and not enough guys to do that. So you need more athleticism in that front seven for sure. We know that. That's not going to happen until after the season. But they did do different things. Like, they were trying Johnny Newton. He was the end in those big defensive line packages. He was a couple times, at least one time, was a stand-up guy, and he was standing up almost like an outside linebacker. And he actually he covered and dropped into coverage, but it was like a little screen that was incomplete to the left side. But they were doing different things with him to try and get something more from him. There are some times too, like one time he's an end. I will say this is a little aside, but there was one time where like the get off needs to be getting off faster, right? Like there was one time where the ball snapped and he was one of the last guys off the ball. Like that's something that you want to see get better for him because he has that quickness. It's just that first step can be quicker because it's really more about timing. It's not really quickness. It's more about timing and just in going, right? But anyways, so like the defense, we know what they need, right? You're going to need more athleticism in the middle there. Evan Ingram took advantage of that against Wagner a couple times, same route, got the 41-yarder that got him just over the middle. That's a tough play for Wagner against him. And Ingram is just more athletic at this point and just ran away from him. So they need that. Will Harris being back, I felt helped, was kind of in and out. We rotated with Jeremy Reeves, Quan Martin, but he's just a guy that communicates well. You didn't see the busted plays. What you did see sometimes though is like there were a couple times where like there was one coverage bust where I think it was like they gained 11 yards for a first down to a fullback in the flat, or running back in the flat, that somebody clearly should have been over there and wasn't. And it looked like maybe somebody was in man when it should have been like a cover 2 situation. Don't know, but bottom line is you didn't see a lot of that happening, which is good. But you want to see less of that happening. There were a couple times where maybe somebody should have sent, they maybe sink a little bit more to cover up some routes that led to a big play on, I think, 1 third down conversion down the side. So there were little things like that happened, but then Bo Nix also made a tremendous throw at the end of the half that really kind of like one of the things that kind of was troublesome is that each time Washington would score, the defense would give it right back up. So they score late in the first half, and then the defense gives up a touchdown right at the end. And like that's something that was kind of not a backbreaker, but it certainly didn't help. And it was a good play by Nix. He's knee almost on the ground, just gets it over the middle for a touchdown. But that was a really good play by Nix. Not a huge fan of Bo Nix. I think that he did have a pretty good game, made some good plays on the move. He's up and down on the move. Like you can see the accuracy off. You can see why there's a ceiling with him that I think you don't see with Jaden, with Drake May, or even Caleb Williams. But he's in a good spot for him, and I think he handles Sean Payton well. But I think he's up and down. I think with a better pass rush, this game is going to be would have been different but they just don't have it. And we know that. And that's, again, something that will have to be solved in the offseason, whatever way you do that. They're undermanned. And I think like that's the thing, like in that 4 of those losses, they not only looked undermanned, they looked poorly coached overall. And like that was the bad sign. And you don't, again, you can say, okay, all these guys are hurt. I get it. But you can still play and look better. And that's what they've done. Now can you get over that and maybe get a few wins here to close out the season? And I think they will. Like the way they're playing now, I feel pretty good that this team's going to get a couple wins, especially when Jaden gets back. And even if whenever he comes back, and he will come back, I think they'll get something out of that because I think I think that would be a good way to finish the season for them. But again, I go back to the offensive line, like really nice job against a very tough group. That's what you want to see. You want to see them make plays, or you want to see the offense make plays. You want to see these receivers. What can they do? And I think we're seeing it. I'd like to see even more from Trey Burks. Only one catch, a tremendous catch, but you'd like to see a little bit more from him. And I think you will. And I think he's a guy you definitely want to bring back for next year. So, and it's just, like I said, it's a shame on the 2-point conversion because Mick Nichols would have scored. Mariota, I thought, did a nice job. They did have, the interception was terrible. And it looked like, some indecision on the play where he's like, okay, you see a gap to run, then you don't, and he said he was just trying to throw it away. He blindly was trying to throw it away and clearly didn't get it up high enough. And it bit him because like that's points right there. Points are at a premium here. And that clearly could have cost that those 3 points could have been the difference in the game. But I felt like he's also fairly aggressive when they get those one-on-ones. He was going to them with a slot fades and, things like that. Like just, there were a couple times like maybe could you have passed up something here that would have been safer to go for the big play here, but they hit a number of big plays. So it's really hard to kind of quibble with a lot of that. So, but again, overall, it was at least a fun game, and it was a fun game to watch for a change. It was not, it was fun. And the last couple of games at least have been interesting down the end. And, for those of you who want to see them win, I think it's going to happen soon. For those who want the high pick, they're still going to have a high pick because even at this point, they're not running the table. So you're going to see a couple wins. You'll probably still be in the top 10 or right around there, and you'll be in good shape. But again, keep in mind, the teams that win a lot do not draft top 10. Okay. That's not where they live. And, I think the other thing that we're seeing too is you be careful with like trying to trade number one picks for future number ones for guys. Like if, just imagine if they had traded a future one for Trey Hendrickson. I don't know that I don't know how much better you'd be this year. I talk about pass rush, but I don't know how much better you would have been, and you wouldn't have this high pick. So you'd have had a guy who's in his 30s that like, what are you doing? So, Falcons traded up number ones, future ones to move up in the draft last year. Their pick's going to be in the top 10 as well. So anyways, you never know with that stuff. And that's just a little aside. I don't know why I got into that because it doesn't have anything to do with the game. But folks, I'm running out of things to say. Better showing, and I'm going to watch the film and just give you some second thoughts for Tuesday morning and get maybe some more coherent thoughts there, or maybe some more better observations. But I felt like there was just a better night overall for them, something to build on. No moral victories, but at least they look like a professional team again. And listen, folks, my thing has always been, before they can really turn around, it starts by playing well and playing better. And finally, they showed more of that pulse, and they showed a lot of fight. So there you go, folks. Again, still 3-9, not great. Season's kind of lost, but this is where we are. I appreciate you tuning in. Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving, and I'll talk to you next time.